I think that villains in literature are different than villains in real life only because villains in real life, their motives are sometimes foggy, we don't get them, or they're kind of grubby and dumb, like someone shooting on impulse. But the difference between life and literature is literature has to make sense. And I think that most villains in literature are a lot more interesting than real life villains because we as writers have to make them a lot more interesting than kind of cardboard punch outs that you might get in comic books or in the early James Bond movies. You just see a bad guy, you know he's a bad guy, and James Bond and company are going to go after him. But I think that a real villain does not get up in the morning and look in the morning mirror and say, there is the face of evil. I think they have in their own minds sweet smelling reasons why they do bad stuff. I had terrible parents and I was abused by them, or I was at odds with our neighbors, or we were born poor, so I was at odds with the socioeconomic level of society, or I was at odds with the law, with police. I was at odds with my classmates. I was at odds with society in general. I may have been at odds with nature. I was born with a disability of some sort. So I think they're always getting back. I think that real victims get back. They rob banks because they don't have any money and they never did, or they have a drug issue or whatever. So I think that in books, people look to see what the writer's creative imagination will come up with in terms of motives. Because even in the court of law, with all these legal minds, motives aren't often established. It's much more, you did this crime, you're going to get punished for it. And motives might be summarized in 5 or 10 words or less. So I think that is part of why people turn to mysteries. They want to know what, through the writer's mind, motivated these criminals in these stories to do bad things.
Mm.
And also
So,
hoping for
yeah, go
justice
ahead.
at the end, because the real world doesn't always end with justice, as we know.